Elie Ischebit, the popular former European cyclocross champion, was understandably disqualified at the Exact Cross in Beringen after stepping on the bike of his rival Ryan Kamp after they both fell to the ground. However, the UCI of Lappartient has decided to sanction him with an eye-watering fine of 100 Swiss francs for that vomit-inducing action. Something which would never have happened to Ischebit if he'd fallen next to his compatriot, the Belgian Bot, or even the current world champion, the son and grandson of dopers. This is just one of the hundreds of decisions that have been wrongly made by the top leader of world cycling, someone more concerned with presiding over the International Olympic Committee and gaining contacts in high places than with the workings of sport. Now, in today's dossier, we shall analyse the three major problems of Lappartient's management as head of the UCI, and we'll present several recent examples. We'll also offer a possible solution to this serious problem of having an incompetent as president of the UCI, a man who's been in the big chair for 7 years now. Make sure you follow us on our Twitter account, @UncleCycling, for more information. Subscribe to this channel, of course, for more cycling content. And now, let's start with the first problem of all: the concealment of doping positives. In January 2024, after WADA announced that Spain was a doping paradise and the director of the Spanish anti-doping agency, José Luis Terreros, had to resign due to his more than notorious incapacity, the Spanish newspaper Marca published a report confirming that the UCI had received 2 positives for biological passport infringements in July 2023, anomalous results sufficient to sanction those 2 Spanish cyclists. And of course, they did not belong to any big star like the hard-working Juan Ayuso or the eternal attacker Enric Mas or the diesel Carlos Rodriguez. But what has the UCI done with these biological passport positives 15 months later? Well, as far as we know, absolutely nothing. It seems that Lappartient is not too interested in cases of anomalous results in biological passports, yet that is possibly the best way to detect doping today, considering how complicated it is to test positive in an anti-doping test with the current measures of the UCI. This was something that we told you about exclusively just a few months ago in this video that you're seeing on the screen. Now, a perfect example is provided by that of the Spanish cyclist Ibai Salas, a rider from the Burgos BH team who was detected in 2018 with adverse results in the biological passport. He wasn't sanctioned by the UCI of Lappartient until 2020, and then, after appealing to the Spanish ordinary justice system, he had that sanction removed, and Selfie has not wanted to appeal, unlike WADA, which has done so. That's to say, Selfie not only hides positives, like those 2 Spaniards that have not yet come to light, but also he doesn't appeal through the ordinary Spanish justice system in the case of Ibai Salas. And so there's no reason to assume that any Spanish cyclist will be sanctioned for doping even years later. Now, it's true that the UCI depends on the national anti-doping agencies, something you've already seen in the recent Portuguese case, something that we exposed to you exclusively when we told you that Frederico Figueiredo had been caught with anomalous results in the biological passport, but it was not until 2 months later when the Portuguese anti-doping agency confirmed it. And there are still more than 10 cases to be confirmed. Lappartient cannot sanction if he's not notified in time. But when he is notified and he does not sanction, surely this amounts to hiding doping positives. And if he does it with low-profile cyclists, well, there's no reason to assume that he'd do it with his friends with whom he takes selfies. Now, if I might be so bold to say, the Cycling Highlights team is well informed, and we know that there are cycling stars whose results in these biological passports are, to say the least, suspicious, and they should be investigated and possibly sanctioned in the future. But does anyone think that Selfie is going to really go one step further and try to expose those cases of cyclists who were already millionaires? Now, the second point is the lack of support for cyclists with few chances. Selfie's always talking, saying he's full of support for cyclists who've gone through real torture in their federations, like Afghanistan, or allowing Russians to change their nationality to remain part of the World Tour, or even taking the UCI World Championships to Africa for the first time. And these are noble, nice gestures. But it's far from being a complete solution to good management for cyclists with fewer economic possibilities. Just a few days ago, the Ethiopian champion, fourth in the recent African Championships, Nigasi Hailu Abreha, desperately asked on Twitter for a job opportunity so that they could continue being a professional cyclist after their contract with Quebecer had finished and they didn't have an agent to help them find a new team at this stage of the season. Or we could take the case of the Nigerian cyclist, Eselovina Upesarai, who was unable to attend the African Championships because, the young cyclist was told, the Nigerian Cycling Federation lacked the funds to pay for her trip to Kenya. And this despite her winning several medals at the African Games, going to the Paris 2024 Olympics, and being the 2023 African champion. And she was unable to defend her title just a few days ago. Now, of course, Selfie Lappartient was able to attend these African Championships, and there he was oh so busy taking hundreds of selfies with all the cyclists present. But he didn't want to comment on these two recent cases of an obvious lack of support from the UCI to a cyclist without an agent, or a rider without the possibility of defending her title of continental champion. Now, obviously, Selfie, he's not God. He can't multiply the loaves and fishes. But we would appreciate fewer selfies and just a little more work to prevent the recurrence of such situations. It's a crying shame that cyclists at such a good level in Africa have no chance to grow or even continue pursuing their profession under decent conditions. It's really, really hard to watch. Now, safety. Selfie knows that it's a hot topic, the issue of cyclist safety, and there's big business around it, hence the creation of SafeR, an organisation under the umbrella of the UCI to try to defend the safety of cyclists. The problem is that while Selfie was in Zurich telling everyone about the benefits of his programme, young Muriel Führer, only 18 years old and with a GPS on her bike, was dying a few kilometres away, lying in a forest, alone and unattended to. The problem is that Selfie wants to avoid talking about deaths in cycling. If it were not for Bahrain Victorious, many would have even forgotten about Gino Mader, as many have already forgotten about Simone Roganti, the promising Italian cyclist who died in strange circumstances while sleeping, or Andre Dreger, the Norwegian cyclist who was going to be part of the World Tour but died in an accident in the middle of a competition in Austria. No, we have the feeling that only a really serious episode involving some superstar, as was close to happening at the Zulia, with that crash involving the Anchovy Vingegaard, Focus in Evenepoel, the skier Roglic, Steph Kras or Jay Vine, only something on that level would really prioritise safety in cycling ahead of more speeches. Now, cutting out certain notorious sections of certain races, while including massive downhills or multiple traffic island finishes, and trying to offset that with the odd chicane here and there, that's not enough to improve safety. Even cycling's own advocate, Adam Hansen, says he doesn't like the political part of his job. And all the while, Selfie is filling his resume with dead bodies. It's another scandal of biblical proportions, not to mention the biggest of his career as UCI president. But what could be done? Obviously, remove people who don't know the first thing about cycling from the UCI. It's impossible for there to be a perfect leader because everyone makes mistakes. But this organisation is packed with people in suits who really don't understand how the sport works. They seem to really think that to clean up doping, you simply don't show positives. Or they support some in need, but not others. And they believe that safety is simply about allowing riders to stop because it's raining. Oh, Selfie, please, do us all a favour. Resign. You can go back to your post as a local mayor. Just leave cycling alone. There's a good chap.